Hi, welcome to Built in the Bush. My name's Tanya Atkinson. I'm an executive coach and growth and transition facilitator. And one of the absolute privileges that I get in my job is I get to hear the personal stories of how people got to be where they are today and what made them successful, and how sometimes the things that went wrong are really the things that went right for us and set us up to be where we are today. The whole point of the podcast is to share those ups and downs, to share their personal stories, but also to hopefully give you the inspiration and the motivation to realise that you can follow your dreams and your purpose. There are way too many different jobs in this world and way too many different people for us to be doing a job that we don't enjoy most of the time. So without further ado, let's get into it. Welcome to Built in the Bush. Today we've got Keiron Lander here. Keiron, welcome. Thanks for making the time. I might let you introduce yourself and how you explain the many, many hats and things that you do today. So firstly, welcome.
Thank you.
Keiron and I met in Quilpie. Actually, I only just shared this story with Keiron before. Nowadays, definitely, I'm sure it's ADHD or things like that. But back then you were just, if you're energetic kids, you're a naughty boy or a naughty kid. I still remember you being that energetic kid. We first moved to Quilpie. I think you were the first kid we ever met. Came up, stuck your head in our car and said something I can't remember. And your twin sister was trying to pull you back and pull you into line. And I just always think of you as this kid with so much energy, great little kid, but so much energy. And then now to see what you've done with your life, that's why I was really keen to get you on here as a guest. So do you want to share what you're doing now?
I suppose my background, obviously my name's Keiron Lander. Born in Toowoomba, a proud Indigenous man through my grandparents, Bubsy Lander or Thelma. So connections to Western Queensland, the Mythica people, my grandfather, who took on my dad, Willie Lander is a dairyman from Lake Eyre, and connections down sort of to Kenya through my great-grandmother. So very proud of culture and what that does for me. And then I suppose a kid from the bush, grew up in Western Queensland in a little town called Quilpie, but congregated around sort of that western corner from sort of Windora at the Birdsville at times, Charleville, Cunnamulla.
Yep.
So very proud to be from, I think, a beautiful part of this country. Very
Definitely
fortunate.
agree with you on that one.
Yeah. So grew up with my grandmother. She raised me and my twin sister. She unfortunately, at birth, we were left in hospital and went into foster care for about 18 months. And my grandmother was successful in the high courts to get full custody of me and my twin sister. And
so she had to go to the high courts to get custody of
Yep, here in Brizzy. That's a different story, but I could only imagine how difficult that is for a woman with a sort of low educational attainment. But a very staunch, very loving, caring, and very guiding person.
Yep.
But also too that support not only of my grandmother but my uncles and aunties. Obviously, I lost my grandfather at an early age, but even just the support of the community generally in that sort of western corner, I'm very grateful for.
Yep.
So grew up. Was lucky I see a lot of my friends sort of start to progress away to education. The high school was slowing down from, going from year 12 to year 10 and then only a handful of kids. So the opportunities to engage in sports, I was a sports fanatic, particularly rugby league or cricket.
So I'm just going to interrupt there. You're a pretty talented rugby league player too, from my memory.
You could look at it as talented or just someone that was, driven.
Yep.
I think, talent is, the
only
skills.
gets you so far.
Yeah. So I was determined, very competitive.
Where do you think that stemmed from?
Yeah. fighting your way.
Yep.
But also think too that I wanted to see if I could progress with sports, and I knew that going away and getting an education was a vehicle for that. So I wanted to go away to boarding school, and I was able to access some AB study and get a scholarship to Downlands College in Toowoomba.
And just on that one, Keiran, so, I mean, not everyone even knows that there's that option there to access that. So who were the people in your life then that helped you realise that was an avenue or do the application?
Oh, well, yeah, that, again, I'll probably lean on my grandmother and those who were around her, the school itself.
Yep.
And we had already had some young people from Quilpie and some of my own family members. I remember sort of Roddy Gorringe from Windora. They were going to Downlands and Berta and then a couple other mates. And obviously I was good friends with your family as well. And that was the avenue. And at some point I thought, I didn't know that it wasn't an opportunity. I just said I need to go away.
Yep.
And spoke to the old girl, and obviously then she done the work.
Yep.
And then I had to show up, and
which still isn't easy to do. I mean, as much as you want it, that's still going to be scary to go away to school at that age. When I guess you said you had some cousins there, but no one else in your grade that you knew, or
sort of Chog was finishing at the time. Clinton said finished the year before. There's a couple other friends of ours from out at sort of Baduri Station. They'd been there a few years earlier, Clayton Evans.
Oh, yeah.
And I got to know Stewie Morton and these guys. Brendan Gange was another one, Tahi Heka. So I had people that, one, I trusted, I knew really well, and I knew that I could lean on them if I needed to. I didn't lean on too many people. That's not how I operated.
Yep, you're used to doing it yourself.
Yeah, so just went away to school and moved to Brisbane. But I'm not sure if you want to hear everything, but that's a little bit about me.
How did school? Actually, sorry. Before we get into that, so what are you doing now?
So right now I work for an amazing organisation called Young Guns Crew. It was known as Young Guns Container Crew, with Trent and Scott Young, the owners, and they own not a shipping container business, but a crew that unpacks and packs shipping containers. Okay. So we handle the stock and the supply and logistics chain, helping our customers get it onto trucks and shelves ready for our communities to purchase. So we're I would say the manual part of that. Yep. But we have a team mentality. Yep. Of developing crews to then execute this work with safe hands, with a safe environment, but also with efficiencies. And that's our model to then help young people get into work, low barrier entry level. So my role there is, or my title is Head of Indigenous Impact. In simple terms, helping the organisation from a cultural perspective improve our cultural capability of our leaders, but also to work with our communities to create opportunities for them to know that those low barrier entry level work there, but also start to transition them into maybe first-time jobs, or they've lost work, or they've been unemployed for a while, and this might be that leverage they need to get going. Yep. So a couple of things. Giving them some of those
foundational life skills that they may not have learned, or B, because of circumstances and things they've gone through, lost the confidence or the belief to sort of know how to apply them.
Yeah, and I think when I first sat down with Scott around the vision of how can we do something greater than ourselves and leverage our businesses for that. And at the time I was working in health and I wanted to learn more about business, but also Scott wanted to see how we could take that community model and put it into a business model. And so I've been working on developing a community-based entry-level project, and I wouldn't call it a program because they start and finish. Yep. We talk about a potential first pathway. So we're developing a pathway for young people that either left school early, unemployed, underemployed, finding those employment opportunities are far reach, and designing something that starts to address the gap
Yep.
and the disparities of employment for young people.
Yep. And what are you seeing so far with the program? With the pathway.
Pathways. We're seeing results. I think there is a part that we play in providing the environment, ensuring we're building strong connections with these young people from a place of care, understanding, providing a place where they feel like they can belong to and turn up.
Yeah.
We also then start to create that ability for them to feel safe, to learn, to reach
Which
out
is so important.
if something's not right at home.
And how to reach out.
Yeah, so, and then tailoring our approach to learning. What we say is we want to see effort.
Yep.
You bring effort, you're teachable.
Yep.
If you can't bring that, we're really going to struggle.
Yep.
And so it's not a highly skilled job or a technical job, but it's like a community. You got to work for each other and with each other.
Yep.
And so essentially I'm using the pathways as a cornerstone or a foundation for these young people to start their employment journey, because we know that we can remove a whole heap of disparities, not just work, health, social barriers, financial barriers, etc., if you've got a job.
Yep.
So that's what we've been working on now for a couple of years. I've had about 50 young people come through.
Yep. So sorry, how long?
The program, the pathways itself, but the project sort of started when I've nearly been there 3 years.
Yep.
But the specific program pathways is, this will be our fifth with young people. We did trial one in a school just to give that education.
Yep. How'd you find
we're still working in the education system. I find that very difficult.
Yes.
You're still constrained by the conditions that the education system actually enact at the moment. You're still turning up at 9 if something's going wrong. I think there's a false sense of where these kids are heading in that system, in some of our education systems. Anyways, but that's
it's a different topic. But I was talking to someone the other day. I think it's an uneducation system at the moment. We have a system and a structure in our education system that goes against all the science and research of how young people learn, but it makes us adults and people in charge feel more comfortable because we're comfortable with it.
Yeah. I look at education and I look at the education I grew up in. Education is not just about teaching. There's a culture of the school.
Yeah.
And so you could have great methods of teaching, but a poor culture within a school that doesn't have boundaries and disciplines and love and care and all the elements that make good culture. That's right.
Yep.
And you can go the other way. You could be very cultural without disciplines of having structure and routine and tailored approaches to learning, etc.
Which is almost as damaging.
Yes.
Not as much, almost.
So that balance, culture will always beat strategy. We know that. But without strategy, we can get lost very quickly. And so we're finding that these young people, we're given culture, providing culture, strong culture for them, but teaching them culture as well, and then putting in some structures and some routines. Now they will fall out. My job's to teach them how not to fall out.
Or how to get back on when they do.
Change those behaviours that they're so used to and creating some new ones. And that takes time. Yep. They've had this stuff for years and they're expected to change their ways in 6 weeks.
This part really, I struggle with this. When someone has, especially if you don't get to them until they're 16, 17, they've had 17 years of programming of that, and then we expect this young person to change when we've told them once or twice.
So, that's what I'm doing at the moment. I play a few roles in our community. I sit on some boards trying to, set some really good culture and good governance, also to learn, a love of learning and learning with and from others. I join our local football club and try help coach when I can. And so, there's a few roles, but everything is based on, giving back and helping that young person that I felt like if I was in that position, what would I want or what would I need?
Yep. And so how do you think, if we go back to sort of your journey then, how do you think that shaped the values now that are clearly important, like you've said many times about culture, about believing in them, about, giving them those opportunities? It comes through how much that means to you. How did your experiences shape that, or who were the people or places that gave that to you?
I think along the way, people shaped it, but also people reinforced it.
Yes.
And so from an early age, people spoke of my uncles with high regard.
Yeah.
And I could see
and how
that,
does that
right?
make you?
So I was very determined and very proud to work towards that. I said, they're known as hard workers.
Yep.
And I remember as a young fellow, that's what I wanted to be known as, a hard worker.
Yep.
Because you're never unemployed if you're a hard worker.
Yeah.
And so, when school holidays will come, I would be out and, some families out at Windora, I'd go out on the station. The Crosses were good families. I speak highly of my uncles.
Yeah.
Because they just had that work ethic and that now wouldn't matter. They just worked. But they always give back. Like they help me, they help my grandmother, they help others, and they still do it to this day.
Yep.
And they've got their own kids. So culture was that. It was around work ethic.
You got to experience that growing up. You know how important that was for you in your journey.
Yeah, just good manners, how you spoke to people. I learned some hard lessons, got a couple of kicks in the ass.
Do you want to talk us through any particularly funny hard lessons that come to mind there?
Oh, no, I think...
that had PG rated?
Listen, our old people grew up in tough times, and that was, if you...
Had a different way of...
Yeah, and if you didn't get it right, you got a clip.
Yep.
Now, I probably got clips unnecessarily too, but, they didn't hurt me.
Yep.
If anything, I would say they shaped me now.
Okay.
But with those disciplines or those kicks in the ass, to put it in simple terms, I was also loved. I was also
you knew that it
fed.
came with,
I was also cared for. And so that is culture.
Yep.
I learned to fish. I went camping, couldn't afford a motorbike, but I rode everyone else's.
That's just smart management.
And similar, I said I had great experiences going to Windora and Arramanga and these places and going in gymkhanas as a 10, 11, 12-year-old. I was no different,
Yeah.
And kids these days could go to those same things and not get that opportunity.
Yeah.
And you feel different.
Yep.
You're not a community.
Yep.
You're separated and segregated. And so I was fortunate to experience that. And then I said those lessons now I try to instill myself or instill them in others, that it's not about developing your kids, it's about developing all the kids in the community so they too can reach their full potential.
Yeah.
Because if your kid is only succeeding in that community, it's an unhealthy community. And it's very likely you will move away.
Yeah, well, that's true too.
Or you'll die slowly there, right? A boring life. So I had those. I'd go to the truck yards. I spent many hours down at Tiger Martyrs, learning how to do brakes and bearings and, learning to weld with no school of welding and getting welding flash.
But all workplace health and safety was met at the time.
Yeah.
And also learning from those wise old blokes. When you're down there learning technical stuff, you're hearing the conversations that are going on, I imagine, and you're taking that in and how they're sort of dealing with things and talking with things. Does that rub off on you as well?
Yeah, I think, they were well-mannered people too, right? So
Yes.
you learn those attributes, how they talk
Yep.
by just watching them and how they teach.
Yes.
There was nothing you couldn't do.
Yeah.
This is how you do it.
And Tiger would have been a wonderful teacher.
Oh.
I don't think I've ever heard Tiger yell at anyone.
No. So, he'd ring me early as the morning, hey, can you come down, give me a hand? And he'd be asleep and, I'm trying to bounce off truck tyres. I got no weight. He'd jump down and help you. So it was, and I loved it. And the thing was, I got paid.
Yes.
I was in primary school and then in high school when I'd come home and I'd work. A couple of times I got caught driving the car when I shouldn't have been to get bakery food, and the cop would say, hey, mate, you got no license. I think I was only about 12 or 13. So,
clearly wouldn't happen in this day and age.
No, but just even those men would, saw that I could take that responsibility and go do that job.
Yep.
Without worry. So those little lessons, I suppose, throughout my journey has been something that I still hold dear. And the way I teach, don't tell a kid not to do that to a fire. Show them how to handle a fire, light a fire. Don't, you keep telling them what to do. How are they learning what to do?
Yeah.
Don't do this, don't do that. It's not good.
Yeah. Instead of telling them what they can't do, let's start with what they can do. Yep.
Yeah.
Give them some tools. So clearly you're drawing on all those experiences and characteristics in what you're doing now. So after Downlands, I just want to go back to the rest of your journey.
Yeah.
So Downlands, finished schooling there?
Yeah. Finished schooling there. I was year 9. I started a landscaping traineeship. I done some landscaping work experience. Mm-hmm. So if I didn't, I don't think I would have finished school. So I was very lucky.
You needed that physical activity as well, like a lot of males. Yep.
Yes, and there was some people there, and I speak highly of them, and still have a good relationship with them to this day. And blokes like Peter Healy, who was one of the sort of boarding personnel and rugby coaches. And,
I remember Heels.
And Lindsay Mason, he didn't do much of the boarding, but Brother Tats, who was my first boarding master in year 8, just had those alignments in, I'm going to look after you, but I'm going to tell you you're a D-head.
When you're out of line.
Out of line, right? Yep. And he used to take us down and do the shopping for the kids to get dollar lollies.
Oh,
right?
yes. Yep.
And he'd get Maccas for us, and we just thought that was the best. But we also knew that there was boundaries, and you had to be respectful. And so I was lucky I got that work experience, and then I done a traineeship, landscape, and done more paving than I'd like to. But I was strong. I used that energy in the right way, and then I went to school to stay on top of the basics of English and maths and obviously sports.
Yep.
So I finished year 11, end of year 11. I got removed from boarding school. We sort of I didn't cope studying.
Yeah. Okay.
I couldn't sit there and study. If you put me in a room for an hour, I'd be scared what that room would look like. Yep. And so I really struggled with that, and that clash with a couple of the
it's not how
beliefs of
some
of the boarding masters, and
we've got a lot of science to back up now that boys in particular do not learn by sitting still. But
listen,
anyway,
you don't need science. Just look at it.
I know you don't, but when there's science to back it up, it does my head in why we're still not changing anything. But anyway, yes. So you went to day.
Yep. So and then I went to day school. Richie Lee from Quilpie, another connection. Yep. I knew his family and his daughter, and so he put me up in my final year of high school. Where I was playing representative football. I was travelling down to Brisbane.
So you had a contract with Broncos by this stage?
I had like
just trial
affiliation with the Reds at that point.
Oh, Reds, yep.
Queensland Reds. And other families at schools, the Cramptons, they looked after me. I remember breaking my jaw, and Tracy and Mark and Roscoe and the family put me up for a couple of months while I was recovering, and I said, and you asked earlier, what shapes you? It's those
the generosity of those people.
Yeah, that no one would ever know about. Right?
Yep. Only
that sort of small group. And, I got good mates from Western Queensland and St. George and Gundy, and they shape you too, right?
Yep.
You quickly find your feet and work out who you are and who you want to be, I suppose.
Yeah. Yep.
So, and I graduated, thankfully.
Thankfully.
It was a goal. It was a goal to complete year 12.
And it sounds like it wasn't an easy goal either. I mean, you probably would have been diagnosed with ADHD if you were today in school, from the sounds of it.
I think, and if you look at the psychology and the brain itself, ADHD is probably not the word, right? Because it's not got nothing to do with attention deficit. But also too, it's understanding how the brain works, and then how can a young person either access some tailored learning, access some sort of medication to help that cognitive processing, or other means, right? And so I'm sure, if I did see the right person, I would have been able to maybe address some of those learning challenges. Didn't stop me though.
No. And at the same time though, it might have, I think the things that hold us back are often the things that makes us successful as well. So by not getting medicated, then the strengths of any of those things may have helped get you to where you are today though.
Well, I think to that point, right, people saw those other attributes.
Yeah.
Now, would I have shown those attributes if I had, say, medication or I was learning differently or whatever? Right? It might have improved my education at the time, but my reading and writing's fine.
Fine, yep.
Right? All I'd done is it took a bit longer, and I put the effort in later when I had the ability to process knowledge and theory and put that into some sort of logical form.
But the resilience, the determination, the grit,
that's
the adaptability that you learn by having to go through those things to achieve it.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So from school, then where do you consider sort of the next big step for you?
Moving to Brisbane.
Yep. So Brisbane straight after school?
Yeah, I went home for about, 8 weeks. I went out to Thulungra working with Jack Tully. Yep. So I went out there and with Ian. Ian was the manager. Went out there working, saved some money so I could move down to Brizzy, and went over to East Rugby and in the Reds. I think they were called Reds Academies back then or something.
Okay. Yep.
And also I was in the Australian squad to try out to go to South Africa.
Yep.
So I think I was 18, so I was under 19s. Went down to Sydney. Michael O'Connor was the coach at the time. They'd had a couple of injuries, so I was coming through. I went to camp, and it was a unique experience.
Yeah, this is Wallabies, like junior Wallabies, whatever.
Yeah, Australia,
junior Australia,
90s, yeah. And, it was good. I got to meet new people. You're learning all the time. I just really struggled, one, moving to Brisbane, two, being in that environment.
Yeah, okay.
And I was a little fish in a big pond.
Yep.
And to put it lightly, I really struggled.
And first time you'd felt like that then? From the Downlands wasn't quite as overwhelming because you knew people there. And
Downlands, you became your family. You ate together, you worked together, you went to church together, you played sports together. Right?
You got that community pretty quickly.
Yeah, so going into that camp, I really struggled with the dynamics of people and, how they operated. Just I wasn't used to it. And I struggled even being at the Reds at the time. There was just something missing about how they interact with young people and new young people, and how do they make them feel welcome and supported.
Do you feel like then, in your words, that it was missing that community piece?
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
And, you know, I've
so
played
that culture piece
sports
of it.
for a long time.
Yeah.
Seen it, you know, and I see it with a 6-year-old coming to West.
Yep.
Even new kids Thursday night, I helped out with the under 8s. None of my kids play on that team, and there's a couple of new coaches.
Yeah.
But I'm shaking hands with an 8-year-old, introducing myself and getting them to introduce each other.
Yep.
And just to see them little people just smile, to go, hey.
You almost see them lift, don't you?
Someone's actually sees me.
An adult especially. Yeah.
And welcome to the club, and, you know, hey, try this. Hey, mate, do your shoelace up. Hey, do you know that person next to you? So just even, like, you know, I do that all the time wherever I go. And those sort of characters and traits just weren't there.
Yep.
And they were, listen, don't get me wrong, I was green too.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say they weren't there. That's 100%.
That was how you experienced it.
There was good people there. There was good people that talked to you and whatnot. It just, that dynamic, I just didn't feel it.
Yep.
And I struggled.
Yep.
I reckon I lasted about 3 months, and I pulled the pin. Actually, I got a phone call from Michael O'Connor saying I'd been selected in the under-19s World Cup squad to go to South Africa.
Oh, so you made the squad.
Pretty much in the same.
So again, here the determination, the grit, even though you weren't feeling it, you were still performing and putting the work in.
Even, some luck that comes with that too, right? And in the same sentence, I said, mate, I'm not going.
You said that to him?
Yeah, I said, so I'm finishing. I'm not.
And were you surprised when you heard yourself say that? Had you already decided, even if I made it, I'm not going, or it just came out?
I just wasn't happy. Like, I just
didn't
see myself going and being happy. Yeah. And listen, the experience would have been great, but also I come to a new environment, Brisbane. I had no family here.
Yeah.
I had a new housemates I'd living with that I didn't really know.
Them either.
Like, I went to work.
Yep.
Lovely fellas.
Yeah. But still didn't have that community or connection yet.
Big city lights, pretty girls, you know.
Lots of alcohol.
You know what I mean? So I really struggled with that to go, well, you know, I felt lonely.
Mm-hmm. So what did you do with that?
At the time, I knew some fellas up in Toowoomba, and they said, we'll go meet Wayne.
Yep.
And so we met Wayne in Toowoomba.
This is Wayne Bennett.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I had a yarn to Wayne before a trial match, and he said, introduced himself. He said, you want to play? I said, yep. And he said, can you pass? I said, yep. Left and right? Yep. And I'd played scrum half in rugby, so my passing was strong.
Strong passing.
Can you kick? I said, yep. Can you tackle? I said, yep. He said, what can't you do? I said, well, give me a go and I'll show you. He said, well, you got a match at Davies Park on Saturday.
Yeah.
Turned up, met the boys, played a trial against South Logan, and then I think the Tuesday I'd signed a junior contract, you know,
with Broncos.
With the Broncos in their Colts system.
And how's that feel? Because that's got to be a bit of a dream as a young Western kid, sports mad.
Yeah, well, that was my dream.
Yeah.
You know, as a kid was about, I want to be a Bronco.
Yep.
Right. And I felt, how good's this? I wouldn't say I'm overwhelmed. It's just like, it's exciting. It's the step that I'm closer to.
Yep.
And I'm a kid, I'm green, I'm naive, you know, like, it is what it is. And
it's all new experiences.
Yeah, and I was living with some lads that was that I went to school with, and you know that they were boilermakers and working in trade industries. But you know, Friday, Saturday, Sunday were big nights, and not for me. Like, I could be having a quiet night, but
the house was still, they were big nights because that's what everyone
my
else
training
is doing.
gear would go missing, or there'd be no food in the fridge because everyone's just had a good time.
Yeah.
And so I remember sitting on the physio bed and going, geez, I've got to get out of this house and just
This is
having a
not
yarn.
conducive to.
And the boys next to me, they were in the reserve grade side, the men's reserve grade side, and they said, "Oh, we're looking for someone,"
Yeah.
And they're like, "Oh, when are you looking for someone?" I said, "Whenever. When are you ready?" I said, "Today." So, and one of those blokes was Ian Lacey, and he's become, like family to me, a brother, a good mate, and so I ended up moving in with Lace. I wouldn't say, I learned some good lessons there too, good and bad, and but we're always there for each other.
Yeah,
the couple other lads and heap of Indigenous lads, and Nathan Appo was another fellow that lived with us at the time. So
you've got that sense of
just
community.
just other people that I could relate with and look after each other, and we never went without food or support.
Yep.
We got up to mischief, don't get me wrong. But that
I'd
was
be disappointed if you didn't. You're a young.
No.
Meant to do that when you're younger.
And so it was about finding this, city life, trying to become a professional sportsman. And I struggled with that.
Yeah.
Because I had mates, but I didn't have that guidance, that senior guidance.
Yep.
And, the first year breezed through, second year was doing really well, getting fit, playing some reserve grade. The next step's NRL.
Yeah.
And I remember at the time that I was competing for a position with a few very good footballers that won a premiership and played first grade. And there was a backlog at the time, and I thought I might have to go somewhere else.
Yeah.
Because I'd be sitting here behind these fellas. And in hindsight, it was a good decision. In hindsight, it mightn't be. I wouldn't have known, right?
Yeah.
As soon as I'd signed, two of those gentlemen ended up leaving the club literally a week later.
Yeah, right.
So it was, that was a little bit disheartening, but I weren't to predict anything.
No, you weren't to know. Yep.
So I'd played a couple of years of Colts, played a few reserve grade games with the Clydesdales, and I think they were the Aspley, Clydesdales.
Yep.
Which was like Toowoomba.
Yes.
And so you learned from those senior followers, how they trained. I was a baby.
Yeah.
And so I ended up moving to North Queensland, to the Cowboys.
Cowboys, yeah.
Again, trying to find me family, and I had a cousin up there at the time. She was a police officer. So that first year, but she was never home, and
she's still busy with
climatising and new nightlife and so
new pretty girls.
Yeah, and just a new way of doing football with new people. That first year was hard.
Yeah.
And to my own accord too, don't get me wrong. I just still didn't have that family around me saying, "Hey, pull your head in," or
just to pull you back on track.
Yeah, and that's the thing.
Give you that kick up the bum.
Yeah, and I had that at home. I had that at school. I still was my own person, but
it's just that person that trusts you and loves you still
reminded me of what's important. Right. So that first year went quick. Got in a bit of trouble, for drinking too much and being the party life.
Yeah.
Being the life of the party, if that's what you're going to call it, but living that life. And
the Quilpie coming out in you.
Yeah, like I trained, don't get me wrong, and at the time some family of mine moved up from Toowoomba that next year, and it was a blessing.
Yeah.
Because it just grounded me again.
You again.
I stopped drinking. I trained hard. I done all the things that you should be doing to make that elite level. And I was in the squad. I was, named in the team and, in the 18. So I'm just there. And sort of July, September, and we'd had a fair few injuries. I got an injury at the wrong time.
The joys of sport.
Yeah, and so, I'd end up breaking a clavicle bone in the top ear, and
Yeah.
that was all good. I sort of had
And
to
so
come
what,
back.
there was an opportunity that you missed out on because of the
Yeah,
injury?
I got named. I remember I was in the 18 down in Penrith Panthers, and I was told, "Yep, Keiran, you're gonna play today. We just got to check on Stevie Southern."
Yeah.
And Steve had a bad shoulder, and literally, I think he tackled the bag 3 times. Not like tackling a person.
Yeah.
And then, like, literally before we were about to go back in the shed, said, "Mate, you're not going to play tonight. You know, you're going to be 18th man. So go have a shower." That was all good.
Yep.
I know, like, I wasn't disappointed. I just got to keep working.
Yeah.
And at the time, if you go back, I don't know what round it was, but it was like later, 17 or whatever, and Matty Bone, we won.
What year are we talking roughly?
2007.
Okay. Yep.
No, 2008, sorry.
2008, yep.
And Steve Southern hurts his shoulder at the start of the game, like literally in the first minute, doesn't go back on.
Yeah.
So I'm fully dressed.
Yep.
We play with 3 on the bench, and Matty Bone killed him this night, right? And next day I got flogged. The boys celebrate. I go to training that morning with Stephen Hooper because I didn't play. Stay fit, stay healthy.
Yeah. Okay.
And then the following week they had the bye, so I went back, and that's when I broke a bone playing for the Cutters reserve grade.
Yeah.
So all good. I come back, got named in the 18 again, just around that fringe. Keiran, just be prepared. You're going to get your opportunity. And I was, and I went back and played for the Cutters, and I got it. I'd been getting some burners in my arm, and I went and got it checked out. I had nerve damage in my neck.
And you can't mess with that stuff.
And so all that, it just went to...
All of a sudden it's, yeah.
No good, to put it nicely.
What do you do with that?
Surgery,
Yep.
seeing the specialist. I stopped playing that year.
So you're out for the whole year then?
Well, it was the end of the year,
Okay.
the last, might be 6 rounds leading into the finals. We made finals that year too, and done the effort. I needed surgery on my neck, but also was looking to renew my contract.
Oh, so this is around that time as well.
They're not renewing your contract.
When
You're a liability, right?
Yeah.
Neck issues, etc. And listen, they made sure I got my neck operation, but I really struggled. I went to a pretty dark place.
Yeah, I can
what's
imagine.
next?
How do you pick yourself back up from that?
Family.
Yep. Back to that community and
Family,
connection,
and Jojo or Jody, the Lux, the Pierces from Toowoomba, they're my family. And I was, feeling sorry for myself, in a bit of pain. I started drinking again, and just said, pull your head in.
Yep.
And I remember it clearly. I was sitting on the couch. But it was that, just going, actually, I got to do something. And so I looked at, coming back to Brisbane. I went back to the Reds, Queensland Reds. Phil Mooney was there at the time. I just signed, like a development squad
Contract
there.
also,
Doing some work on the side. I think I was doing went back and done some landscaping with the Logans, and started playing Premier Grade rugby with these Tigers. So it was going really good. So started sort of getting on the straight and narrow. My wife now, but partner back then, Christina, sort of getting some stability in my relationship, and so that was going good, and my rugby was going good, and had some stability at home. And I remember Phil asked if I had my passport, and I did. And so we were going to New Zealand. He said, "I'm going to play you this week. It's between you and," I think it was Richard Kingy at the time. And he said, "Yep, you got a passport?" I said, "Yeah." And I'd got a passport back in 2002 or something. So I thought they just last
forever.
20.
Yeah. Yep.
It expired.
Because it's not something you'd had to
It expired.
worry about before. Yep.
And I couldn't get a passport quick enough.
Oh, God.
So that opportunity again was in front of me, and the other person got the opportunity because I didn't have a passport.
How do you not let that destroy you?
Listen, I wouldn't say it destroyed me, but the penny drop said, F this.
Yeah.
I've had enough. Like I'm there.
You feel like
keep-
the carrot's all every time you're nearly touching it, it's been
And I just thought
taken away.
I've got to do something different. Like if I'm going to spend my life, and listen, I encourage every sports person, right? And people you talk about when you make it, the career's short.
Yeah.
So do not criticise what they get earned because you're
can
not stop in one day or one train
the
and
span
miss
of
up.
that career is
But those who don't make it too, what you've got to do to scrap and train and work and still all the social challenges that every human has.
Yeah.
They don't disappear.
No.
And so, I was scrapping, I was learning, still, finding my way to become a young person, not even a man, just a
Because
young.
how old are you at this stage?
I'm 23.
Yeah, so still
22, 23.
still very young. Yep.
Spent 5 years in that sort of system just going, holy moly. And it's tough and it's lonely.
Yep.
And I thought, I'm not going to spend another 2 or 3 years trying to do this. I'd had neck surgery.
Yeah.
I'd had some back trouble. I'd seen some of those mishaps to go, hang on a second. If I keep doing this, is this the life I want?
Yep.
And it just wasn't. I just said, well, I might have to do something else. And I could work.
Yep.
So, I then went and got a trade and I was going to give up football altogether.
Yeah.
But my mate, Lace, was playing out at the Ipswich Jets and said, come out here.
So that's how you ended up at Ipswich Jets.
Yeah.
Yep. And then how long were you there for?
So I spent 10 years total.
Yep.
6 years as a player and 4 years as a coach.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but you were the captain when had they ever won?
No, we'd been beaten in a couple of finals over 30 years.
So first time what's the name of the
Intrust Cup or Host Plus Cup is what they call it now. So, first time.
Yeah, and also beat the Sydney team, which rarely happens as well.
It was a new concept, only a few years old. So we were underdogs, which we definitely were. We were playing at Townsville Blackhawks at the time that had over 500 games of experience in NRL.
Yep.
We were misfits. We were from the bush, from PNG, from Fiji.
I remember watching it. God, it was a good game.
From the Mission, from Mackay, we're just a bunch of footballers that Ben and Shane done a terrific job to bring together and brought out our best.
Yeah,
that's all they did. They brought our best. They saw our skills and brought them out.
Did they let you really sort of lead and build a community and culture within the team too? Like it sounds like they already were doing that, but were you allowed to add your?
Yeah, so before Ben and Shane took on the coaching role, they were assistants the year before, and we ended up coming last. And at the time, we didn't know who was going to coach at the time, and Lace and I were going, well, Ben and Shane might coach, or we don't know, but we've got a good bunch of lads.
Yeah,
we've got good people.
We got good bones here.
We got locals. We weren't losing games by big margin. Actually, our second last or our last game, we beat a very good team by 30-odd points. And it's actually the coach had gone. Yeah. We had the assistants. So it just
That's
felt
right,
like...
I do remember, yeah.
And the assistants were Ben and Shane.
Yep.
So the shackles sort of were let off. They said, play footy. This is what we're here. Let's have fun. And it was a good night in Mackay, don't worry.
I bet it was.
But it was, there was a leadership group there in that year, and I always saw myself as someone that should lead and wants to lead. And then we come together in the off season, and there was lads there that I respected highly that had been at the club, that had led the club through tough times and led them to a grand final only a few years earlier, or a fair bit earlier. And then we got into pre-season, we all stayed, a couple of new fellas come, and Ben and Shane brought this culture of, effort, compete, use your skills, and we'll let's sharpen your skills, right?
Yeah.
Let's not only use them, let's make them better. And let's create a game that people enjoy playing and you'll enjoy playing.
Yep.
So it took time, but they got the best out of people. And just before we started, they called me in, and I remember they called me in the Jets. They said, "We want you to be captain." I sort of had to look at them sideways, like, "You sure?"
You were surprised? You weren't expecting it?
No, I wasn't. You know, I think it wasn't those things that I expect.
Yeah.
Whether I was captain or not, didn't change the way I played, didn't change the way I wanted to set standards. You know, myself leading by example, and then, you know, I wasn't scared to call someone out for doing the wrong thing.
Yep.
But I also be the first person to help them in need.
Yeah.
You know, so those attributes again come back to family and those experiences.
Community and
so we built a Jets community. You know that we enjoyed our football. Each year we got better, and eventually, you know, we didn't miss the final under Ben and Shane when I was captain at the club.
Yeah, right.
You know, 5 years straight.
Yeah.
And I think 2 of those years before we won in 2015 were probably the making of 2015, but we could have easily won with a couple of, you know, bounce of the ball or an injury or, you know.
There was nothing in those other years.
No. We played Wynnum the year before in 2014, and we changed a few things that week. And Marto asked Ben after the game, "Why'd you change things?" And Ben couldn't answer him.
Yeah, okay.
So the following year we changed nothing. Right? From where we drank coffee to what we did in the morning to,
what,
you know.
colour socks?
Mate, phenomenal. We changed nothing. We wore the same jerseys. You know, like it's. And so, you know, that experience and, you know, coming into the finals, we'd worked so hard to know that we could trust
each other
to do our job and stick to what we've been doing.
Yep.
And I was smiling on grand final day. I looked at the team. There was no message before running out.
Really?
You know, well, what do you say?
I don't know. What did you normally? What did you say before other games?
I think just reiterate what we need to work on.
Yeah.
And Ben and Shane were very good for my development.
Yep.
As a person.
Well, it sounds like a lot of those things you've brought through into your business and what you're doing.
Yeah, as a captain. And they seen those in me.
Those
and
qualities.
they said they reinforced them and they helped build them. Right. Yep. And I've great respect for those men and their families, and they've become my family, right? Yep. That community again. So yeah, we won. We went to Sydney. We were like little kids. We just loved it. We just enjoyed it.
Yeah.
You know,
and you could tell watching you guys play though. I remember watching that final, and you could tell the people playing in that team were enjoying what they were doing.
We brought fun back to football, and I'll ask and I'll argue with anyone that watches 2014, 2013, 2015 highlights of our team playing. There is not a team in this country at any level that played football like that. Yeah.
You guys just had that team and that community.
We played. We played the game how everyone should play the game.
Yeah.
So
which is with enjoyment first.
Yeah. But there was things that not only was I good on the football field and what I was enjoying is the work I started to do off the field.
Okay. So that's when that sort of started to ramp up.
Yeah. So I was doing my trade. I didn't enjoy my trade. I was in a pretty dark place generally.
Yep.
You know, with
the work side of things.
Yeah, mate, just work. I was doing 60, 70 hours.
Jeez, plus footy training.
I wasn't enjoying footy. We weren't winning, didn't enjoy the culture. You know, I was in a bad way. I was drinking, partying, and that's not a good recipe for anyone.
No.
And I was concerned where I was going. Mm-hmm. And if I didn't change quickly, it was a one-way ticket to the graveyard.
Yeah, right. See, that's a sobering realisation.
But it was, you know, those things around me. Said my wife now, I fell into this job, which was a healthy lifestyle job with the Institute for Indigenous Health, where I was able to start to educate our people on health literacy.
Yep.
You know, working with young kids and using sports as a vehicle of good health.
Stuff that you're passionate about and that you've got lived experience.
Yeah, and
Yep.
just and to learn and then take those learnings and teach others. That's what culture is, right? It's about learning and then passing those learning on to your community, to your young ones, so then they can pass
it
right?
on as well. Yep.
And so I started that, and it changed my life.
Yeah.
Because I was doing something that I just loved.
Yeah.
And I'd get out of bed easily, and I would work late, and I would go from...
And it didn't feel like work though.
I'd go from work to footy.
Yep.
I'd go from footy to work. Like it just... and so I spent, 12 years building this health promotion program, which is now called Deadly Choices, with my mates, with my community, with leaders that I'd got to meet and learn and still have good relationships and connections to today.
Yeah.
To help reform and reshape how Indigenous health is perceived in our communities.
Which is such an important issue.
Yeah. So, that sort of 2000 end of 2010, 2011, everything just started to go a different way.
Yep. But again, if we're looking back, maybe if you hadn't signed that contract, as you were saying, it wouldn't have put you onto the path to the Jets where you had that opportunity outside of football. Do you think you would have got that work opportunity if you went with the Jets?
Oh, who knows?
Yeah.
Again, there's doing some stuff around a little well-being program, and it there's a good saying: "Who knows what is good or what is bad?"
Ooh, I like that.
Right. And so if I look at those things,
who knows?
Who knows? So 2015, I retired.
Retired from footy anyway.
I retired from footy. I was, at the time, I'd had my first son, Buddy. Me and my wife were about to have our second in 2015, Jed.
Yep.
And I started uni.
Oh,
I started
did you?
studying.
Yeah. Yep.
And
what did you study at uni?
I started a master's in business.
Yep.
And that was a great experience. And
Yeah.
now, going back to learn what you didn't learn.
And your 17, 15-year-old self would never have guessed or pictured that you'd be doing that.
Absolutely not.
Yeah. So again, that determination, that grit, making the most of the opportunities that are there.
Yeah, and I suppose, it's funny how things are, but everything is connected. And so my work was connected to good people, and good people were connected to universities, and, it just, that opportunity I was encouraged.
Yep.
Keiran, you should consider. And, my workplace were phenomenal in the support I had, and I worked around my uni.
Yeah.
Uni didn't take control of my work.
Yeah.
It worked together. I was able to apply my work to my uni and my uni to my work.
Which actually means that you're retaining a lot more of the information you're learning as well then.
Yeah, and, people, and I, the Adrian Carson's the CEO at the time, and Ian Lacey, who was my manager, and my teammates, Cindy Shannon encouraged me, Keiran, give this a go. Like,
yeah.
I was petrified.
I bet you were.
Petrified to fail, petrified to look stupid.
And do you think if you hadn't had those people, so even if you had the people that had said the opportunity's there, you can have it, if you hadn't had the people that believed in you or reinforced or said, hey, do this, you can do this, give it a go, would you have had the guts or the courage to do it and to stick to it, do you think?
I think the mindset for me was not only the support, but the gratitude to go, hey, I've got to give this a proper go. Because, people do get that support.
Yeah.
But they might take advantage of it.
Yeah, that's true.
Right?
Yeah.
And I've never wanted to take an advantage at the detriment of my work or what people are putting into me.
Yeah. So it was important for you, that the people that were supporting you to know that you were putting in that effort and how grateful you were for that.
Yeah. You know, and so when I did take up the opportunity, I was ready to take it with both hands and put the work in. And, you know, I was training one night a week.
Yeah.
Because
because you're studying.
I was in the city doing classes.
And they supported that
Ben
as
and
well.
Shane. Listen, I blew out a bit, so I had to do a bit of extra training.
Extra fitness.
But I remember, you know, the first semester on Tuesday nights, you know, I was 5 till 8 o'clock. You know, so I'd go from work straight in the city, do my 3 hours of study each week.
Yeah.
You know, I wouldn't finish some nights if I'm staying there with other study buddies or, you know, other people doing the course. You know, we're still working, so you might get home till late at night and then
so
bang.
Your wife and your kids are already asleep. You're not seeing them potentially that day.
Yeah, well, my wife was, you know, second baby on the way. I was doing an assignment. She ended up in hospital early because she had some neck problems, and I'm laying on a thin mattress
in the hospital
doing an assessment while, you know, my son had to had to come out early, and, you know, like
he's all okay and healthy and well. Yes.
But you just made it happen. Like, because I knew, like, I just had to.
Yeah.
You know, but if I wasn't in that mindset, I would have given up.
Yeah.
And I felt I would have let people down because they believed in me. They put all the effort, not effort, but, you know, they did put effort. Don't get me wrong, or made it happen, or, you know,
in some way have gone out of their way to support or help. Get you to where you are.
And just for them to acknowledge that effort, it's like paying them back. It's the value they saw in me comes back by me achieving.
Yeah,
right? And that's the greatest gift they want. They don't want nothing else. They want to know that their efforts.
They want to know you made the most of. Yeah,
that's all they ask. So when studied and part time sort of for 6 years and graduated, I think ended 21.
Yep.
Yeah, with a
You're doing better than me. I'm still doing my Masters of Business. So we've got to, and then obviously you've carried on with your businesses and the Deadly Choices and a few different board roles.
Yep. So, you know, I grew up, I started to engage with my family corporation out west, and through the encouragement of my uncles, can you jump on? Knew nothing about board governance or corporate governance. Yep. But I knew that it was essential to making a strong organisation. So I spent a lot of time in understanding and building my knowledge and experience in that. And so I'm still part of that to this day. Also, too, just starting to engage in different conversations about things. I was overseeing the operations in Queensland, so helping teams across the state get off the ground, provide training.
For the Deadly
Choices, developing their managers and helping them develop plans, and, you know, starting to use my skills and pass on. And I'd got to that point about 3 years ago, is what's next? You know, the opportunities here at IU, you've got to wait. That's business, that's anywhere, right?
Yeah.
But for whatever reason, Scott and I sort of crossed paths, and I'd been coaching footy with Ben and Shane, and at the time, you know, we went through COVID, and that was a challenge with coaching football. We had to keep people engaged, but there's no footy, and to get a team back, that is always a struggle in that Ipswich corridor anyways.
Okay.
No, financially not great, you know.
Yeah,
the talent gets sucked out pretty quickly.
The glitzier
so,
clubs.
you know, I stayed engaged. I made sure our young people and our young men had work, or that they needed support. Like, there's lots of things we were doing away from football. We set up a players fund.
Yeah, okay.
The players would contribute their, $10, for example, to this fund, so that when our mates went through hardship, we didn't have to go out of our own pocket.
Yeah, nice. That's a great idea.
That we were able to pay people's phone bills.
There.
We bought groceries.
Yeah.
We done repairs when people had to get, move out. Like,
gee, if that's not community, then I don't know what is.
No, but that's people driving that. That wasn't the club.
Yeah.
That was us.
Yep.
And so those things that we were doing, and then obviously COVID hit, and then we come back, and we'd had a challenging year just from recruitment. Finances were pretty dire straits, and you'll never coach a Jets to earn $1. However, I just wanted to give back. And then we parted ways because where the club was going and where I stood in life and where this club
we're no longer aligned.
No.
Yep. And that happens in life, doesn't it?
Yeah. And you know what? It's been a blessing. Absolutely.
Because it's redirected
Who
you.
knows what is good or what is bad. And at the time,
it definitely redirected you too.
Yeah. At the time, I was disappointed because I'd given my life to that club.
Because how many years by then?
10 years. Yeah. But I wasn't bitter, right?
Yeah.
Bitter says, you lose your passion for what the place stands for, what it gives to you. Right? You lose that memory. That's not good.
No.
And there's a lot of good people there.
Also, if you stay in the bitter, you miss seeing the doors of opportunity that are opening,
and it just didn't align. And listen, they've had to learn some hard lessons, and all the things that.
So you were able to look back and go, all the reasons
if they listened at the time of what I said they should and shouldn't do, they're actually doing it now.
Yeah.
Right. So it just took them a bit longer.
A lot of heartache to get there.
But it was a blessing for me too, because it gave me time to learn it. How could I have done it differently? How could I contribute differently?
Yeah.
So I need to learn those things as well. And I think, looking back, I would have done things differently. Would it have been the same? Who knows?
Yeah.
I don't care. But I watch when they play and they're doing well, or I've got still connections of kids that I brought from remote communities.
Yeah,
to the club. Yep. Doing well and starting their own families. So, it's my team for 10 years. So I'm not.
Yeah, it's a big part of your life.
Yeah, I want to see them do well and young people come through that Ipswich corridor, stay in Ipswich.
Yeah.
Stay with their families. Become, if they don't make it, become tradespeople or educators in Ipswich. It's a good community. So, I done that. And then Scott and I crossed paths and said, Keiran, Young Guns is a good, successful business. We employ young people, but their connections to the co-op people out in Winton. They wanted to get back to culture and understand their journeys.
Yeah, okay.
And how can they leverage my skills and knowledge to help the business become a very good Indigenous business, not just a business?
Yeah.
And how can we use our position to help more young people in need?
Yep.
And that aligned to me straight away. And I said, well, Scotty, I want to learn about business. Right? And I believe that the economy, our people need to play a bigger role in that if we're to move disparities. It's not just remove them, move them away forever. Because we had our own economy. We traded.
That's true. Yeah.
We had trade. We had resource management. We had governance.
Yep.
And so for me, I went to uni because I believe business can help our people.
How do we adapt those two together?
Well, you look at the health sector. Our Indigenous health sector is one of the strongest sectors in Australia, in the world.
Is it?
Right?
Didn't know this.
It does amazing things, right? And it partners with good non-Indigenous services. The Mater Hospital doing, pre- and postnatal support for mums and babies. We've reduced smoking rates. Listen, we're a long way to go.
Yeah.
Our models of care, improved management of chronic diseases. That saves dollars to hospitals, to community, to taxpayers. And so, but that movement wasn't government.
Yeah.
That movement was our old people.
Yep.
Coming together for the betterment of everyone.
Community. Yep.
So how does business do that?
Oh, that's a whole nother podcast.
Not today.
But the key is you start with one. You start with your business, and which is what you're doing now, and with Scott.
So that's where we are today.
Giving back in lots of ways.
Trying to.
Yeah, sounds like you're definitely achieving that though. So tell me, normally the question we always get is, what would you tell your younger self? But I like to flip that because quite often we don't actually stop once we get older and go, wow, look at what we've achieved, look how far we've come. So if you're 17, 23-year-old, whatever younger self comes to mind, what would they say if they could see you sitting here now and what you were doing and how much you're giving back? What would they be saying to you?
I'd hope to say, hey, anything's possible. It's amazing. You are doing good things.
Yep.
And sometimes I have to remind myself that
Yeah.
you are a good person, because don't worry, I'll get challenged
Yep.
about who I am and what I'm doing, and
Which we all do.
It's not a healthy thing of our society, and we do it to ourselves sometimes.
Oh, sometimes we're the worst ones for it.
So for me, it's just reminding myself that I am a good person, and that 17-year-old going, you are a good person.
Yep.
You do good things.
Yep.
And keep doing those things.
Absolutely.
Because the place will be better for it. Right?
Yep.
And when you muck up, quickly fix yourself.
Well, I love already what do I need to do differently? You've said that so many times through your story. We're all going to make mistakes, but it's what we learn from it, isn't it?
Yeah.
What would they be most surprised about? If they could see where you are now and what you're doing and where you're at.
I think the uni stuff would have been a huge surprise.
Yep.
I definitely think. I think the family stuff, like I've really, and I still work hard, and like every person in a relationship, heterosexual or a gay relationship, like you just keep working on it.
Yep.
You just got to, and it's no different. They say your colleague is your colleague. That's rubbish. Your colleague is another human. That you need to work on your relationships, understand your similarities and your differences, and appreciate them, and work to each other's strengths. And so for me, it's those efforts. They're the things that I'd hope they'd be proud of. You've got to keep working, and sometimes
I'm sure they would be.
Sometimes I just go, but I want to know, my kids to see that you got to communicate. You got to keep working on these things. They don't work themselves.
Yep.
And relationships are fundamental to life. Mm-hmm. Don't ever hate someone. You can disagree. Hate's a very strong word, but they're just different.
It's a waste of energy, and it's a.
But also too, where are they coming from?
Yeah.
What have they been taught? What have they learned?
That's it.
What understanding do you have? What shoes have you walked in of theirs to make you make that judgment? And so they're the things I want my kids to know and be strong at.
Yep. To be generous in those assumptions that we're making.
Yeah. And
because no one knows what anyone's story is, and we are all doing the best that we can with what we know at that point in time.
Yep.
Anyway, we're solving all the problems of the world. We better get to the wrap up. So over the grid, couple of bumpy questions.
Yep.
What gets you out of bed in the morning?
Oh, my family.
Yep.
My kids, and being able to provide. That's what we're meant to do.
Yep.
So that's the first thing that gets me out of bed. I think the next thing is knowing that what I'm doing is trying to make a difference.
Yeah, definitely.
I think the day that I stop thinking about the things that I do and they're not making a difference, and everyone is, whether you're mowing the lawn to the local school, you're making a difference.
Yeah.
You're making the place.
And it's the little things that create the big change.
The important things. You put a size on something, it removes the level of importance. Is a small thing or a big thing more important?
Yeah.
First you say the important things.
Very true.
Right? What's important to you and me are different, but they're still important to us.
They're still important. Definitely. Ever experienced burnout?
All the time.
You're still experiencing it there.
All the time. There's days when I get up and just go, I could just sleep. And, yeah. Listen, you're not living if you're not getting burned out at times.
Oh God, we're gonna have to take that one offline. So tired, not burnt out. We shouldn't be getting burnt out. Burnt out's that addiction to that stress and
which
to
is
that busy.
unbalanced, right?
Yes.
And, and it's consuming you. I think there's times when I've been burnt out, but I don't think to a point where I haven't been able to acknowledge it and rebalance.
Pick yourself back up.
Yeah, and that just comes with experience and time.
And just out of interest though, because you've been doing what you love, because we know from research that burnout doesn't occur as much if we're doing things that we actually love and are fulfilling our purpose. Have you experienced as many of those sort of moments or feelings since you've been doing this work that you're really enjoying and that sings to your soul?
Yeah, I think, again, put burnout in its own category. You get exhausted to a point where you go, is it worth it?
Yep.
And when you then be able to rest and reflect, you remind yourself it is important, and it just re-energizes you, right?
Yep.
Because people can take the energy out of you. So burnout can be just from the people.
The situation of the people that you, Yep.
I think I'm able to, identify those things, address them a bit quicker.
So you've gotten better at doing that.
Yeah.
And do you have a routine or a go-to then to pick yourself up when you sort of have those moments, or you've...
Yeah, I think going bush.
Yes.
Going bush is something that is
healing
enormously,
for you.
It refills my spirit.
Yep.
I come back calm. I come back a different person.
Yep.
The same person, but just in a different way.
Just with a bit more perspective.
Yeah, and patience, energy.
Yep.
And so I'd still love going bush if I can a couple of times a year.
Mm-hmm.
If I can't go bush, it's about making the most. Recently I went down near the New South Wales coast and went camping overnight.
Yeah, okay. So it's still getting back to nature in some way.
Yeah, or I've got to do some exercise. I've
Yep.
got to pick up a bit of exercise in some form.
Yep.
Or the soccer that I was doing this morning. So there are certain things. My diet is very good. I eat healthy and all the time.
Yep.
Right. I do enjoy a cold one, a coldie.
Don't we all? I'll never get rid of that.
But it's even that, just being mindful
in moderation.
Yep. So it's not one thing. It's a balance.
It's a few, but knowing what those levers are and how to adjust them.
Yeah.
Mental health. Do you identify as someone that has experienced or suffered from mental health?
Well, you'd be lying if you hadn't. I would argue that most people have experienced some sort of mental health episode,
in
anxiety,
some way, shape,
depression,
or
stress, or whatever. Definitely, I experience on many occasions, mental health challenges, and some very dark days. And these are the things that I, talk to these young people around. Your worst day isn't that bad. Yeah. If you actually just take the time to reflect and have a look who's around you, what's around you.
Great advice.
And so for us, when I was having those dark days, if I didn't see those things, it'd be awful. The number one killer of our young people, 15 to 25, Indigenous communities, is suicide. More of our kids die of anything else other than suicide. Suicide's the number one.
It just shouldn't be happening, should it?
It's mental health, right?
Yeah.
But mental health can be a byproduct of the environment, the people, the ability to reflect and appreciate and those things. So, they're the things that we talk to our young people about, getting out of bed early, feeling good about your day.
Giving them those foundations and life skills to pick themselves back up.
Purpose. Their purpose is family. They want a job. They'll tell you that's their purpose till you ask a few questions.
And get down to what they really need.
Yeah. And so I'd try to less focus on mental health because the stigma comes with it.
Absolutely.
To more around, mental resilience and reflection and, gratitude and appreciation.
I love that, because that's talking about all the tools and the positives that come out of it, isn't it? Whereas mental health is sort of a diagnosis and it's the stigma. So I love that language you just used then. So mental resilience?
Yeah, resilience. They talk about it, mindfulness, appreciation, gratitude.
Gratitude. Yeah,
love, care. That's what strengthens your mental health.
Absolutely.
And don't get me wrong, there is also the clinical side.
Yeah.
Sorry,
when it's required as well.
Because there are some psychological things that are going on that you don't know.
No, and that do require a professional. And absolutely. Yep. What does the bush need more of in 2025?
The bush needs to connect to the rest of Australia.
So I like that. I'm going to ask you another question though. Does the bush need to connect to the rest of Australia, or does the rest of Australia need to connect to the bush?
Well, I would say that there needs to be a connection between the bush and the rest of Australia. It has so much to offer.
Yeah.
It's beautiful scenery, it's good people, it's generosity. And listen, don't worry, some of these communities are struggling with that even, as they've gotten tired or older, or we've started to fall away of what good expectations and values are in these communities. But I think it can serve a lot of these young people that are sitting around not doing much. You know, we're looking for good workers in the bush, and it's the best place to learn.
Yeah. Oh, and the best place to live too.
You can, difficult for any young kid, whether you've got money or not, is getting a car license.
Yeah.
Someone to drive you around. Well, if you take those lessons to a place that has more open spaces to reduce the risk of safety, well, there's an opportunity. More kids can get their license in a safer place
to learn.
Learn, some really good work ethic and skills that doesn't need a lot of technical skills.
Yeah.
Pulling up a fence or, cutting down some timber. You don't need to be Einstein, right? But you'll see the tangible outcome straight away.
Yep. That satisfaction.
Which gives you that reward and the value that you're creating, right? But also too that it'll build resilience, because hard work.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
You might get a blister, or you might work in 40-degree heat one day.
If you're fencing, you're going to get more than one blister, but anyway,
but in the same that afternoon, you're sitting down the river fishing, or you're going for a swim, and you become a young person a lot quicker with responsibilities.
Yep.
I think that's the offering of, the bush, the agriculture, the communities, the civil and plant works, I just,
that's where those opportunities are. Yep. What does Keiran need more of in 2025?
I don't know. I haven't thought about that. What do I need? I need more people to see the work we're doing with our most marginalised. That's what I need.
So how do we? I'll take on the people role then. How do we do that then? How do the people that aren't involved? How do us white fellas? Don't even know if that's politically correct. I am the proud mother of two proud young Gungari tribe men. How do we then see that or influence it or help it?
I think connecting to your local community orgs, right? And, going to visit them and understand what they do and how our people are there to talk.
Yep.
We don't have the time to go and chase. We're always under-resourced, financially struggling because we're raping, pillaging every dollar we can.
Peter to Paul and
to give.
Yep.
And I just think, if every business could take on one young person that is marginalised and struggling.
Yep. Imagine the difference.
How many more kids would be better off?
Yeah.
Just one. And listen, people are already doing some extraordinary things. Don't get me wrong, but we're locking up kids at a faster rate. That's not the answer. We're building $1 billion detention center. It's probably going to be more than that by the time it's finished. To house 80 kids.
Wow.
You give me $1 billion.
Yeah.
And I'll teach 80 kids how to be good humans and provide love, care. I'll teach them how to use their assets, their strengths, and they'll become contributors in their community.
And then they break cycles, and then they can pay that forward. And
they'll have their own kids and families and give those same lessons to them.
So one more question. So if there's business people listening to this that think, yeah, I'd love to bring on a young Indigenous, give them a go, how do they go about doing that? What's the best place for them to website to get in touch with? Or
Yeah, we're playing a role in at the moment, but here in Southeast Queensland, there's some really good community organisations. I work with one down at Logan, Gunyamera, Anala Wangara, obviously in Anala. There's Kabingai Development.
So people can just Google
these
and get in touch.
Yep. In Toowoomba, in Townsville, Rocky, the Rumble is a community org in Rocky. Bundaberg, they're there.
They're there, okay.
And that extra resource or that extra support, that's all they're wanting.
Yeah.
If you're interested in helping the things that we're doing and looking to do, give me a call, Jump on our website, ring our...
And the website is?
Young Guns Container Crew or Crew. Yep. Or ring the office. Listen, I've got... Only social media I got. Actually, I have two.
I was just about to say, because Kieran's not actually on any social media.
No, I'm on LinkedIn. Don't know why. I really want to move off it. But they say you can connect with good people. You got to have a profile on there.
Yeah. But the website they can get you, the Young Guns website.
Yeah, so.
Just contact details.
I started a little business with my brother. He's not my biological brother, but we started a little building company last year, and our goal is to build that company so we can create more opportunities for young Indigenous people, both male and female, in the trades.
Yep.
But they've got good people that care about them.
Yeah.
Right? We'll do things that others won't.
Yep.
But there is also good trades wanting to connect with that.
Yes.
So again...
So then you get the skills, the people with the skills.
There's a connection piece in our communities that we have to strengthen. Right? Once you create connection, you then have to create safety.
Yep.
And then you
because people can't learn without feeling safe.
Young people, whether you're black, white or brindle, are loyal if you look after them.
Yep.
Right? And you're not here to spoil them. Right? They know how to survive without you.
Yeah. They've already done that.
But they'll only thrive with you. Right? So, yeah.
Yep. Thank you, Keiran. It's been great to catch up and find out what you've been doing, but also to hear the passion coming through. I know you'll be embarrassed by me saying this, but part of the reason I got you on here was because I knew some of the good things that you were doing and giving back, and I knew that your path had taken a different route from where you'd sort of initially probably planned. So, but even I'm blown away with all the things you're doing and what you're giving back, and it's just been a pleasure to have you here. The ethos you're approaching it all with is absolutely what I believe in and what I do. And, yeah, I can't wait to see even more great things coming out of it, because you're right, when people feel safe, supported, and when they know that there's someone that believes in them there and is backing them up, it's amazing what people can do, isn't it?
Very, very pleasing to be able to just share, I suppose, for me, the journey, and hopefully people can take something away and either connect with us or share their own stories.
Yeah, or connect with their local community group. But, yeah, by all means, if you're wanting to connect or help, please reach out. Thanks, Keiran. Thanks for making the time for Built in the Bush. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Cheers.